fucking record. Look, this video is super long. It's because I go into every single technique and ingredient you use in the video. So I teach you how to chop onions. I teach you the quality of Parmesan cheese. I give you so many fucking techniques and shit. This should have been 5 fucking videos, but it's one video. It's 20 minutes long. This shit's gonna teach you so much about fucking cooking that you gotta watch it all the way through. I'm sorry it's so long, but holy fuck, I put my heart and soul into this. Watch this fucking video and you're gonna be infinitely better at cooking and make the best fucking vodka sauce of your life. Watch the fucking video.
Alright, today we are going to make a delicious vodka sauce. Now this sauce is super easy to make. It tastes delicious. It's a Monday night. I don't really feel like making something super fancy. So this is something you can whip up really quick. It tastes delicious. It's actually become one of our go-tos, so definitely worth checking out. Now the crazy thing about vodka sauce is that no one actually knows where it was invented. This isn't one of those ancient Italian recipes. You have to follow everything very carefully. There's a little bit of room to improvise. A lot of people think it was invented in the late 70s, early 80s. Some people say it was invented in Italy by a vodka company in order to sell more vodka. Some people claim it was invented in the United States and was super popular amongst the disco crowd. But no one actually knows for sure where it came about. In 2016, as part of a partnership between Russia and Italy, they made a big push to bring it back. Since then, Google searches for vodka sauce have become insanely popular. So that marketing campaign between Italy and Russia is one of the things that has really driven the popularity of this dish. So let's jump into some of the ingredients. Now you could do this with any sort of ingredients, but because it's such a simple dish, the quality of your ingredients is gonna go a long way. So I'm gonna highlight a couple of the ingredients here, talk about why I chose what I chose, and then help you make some of those choices when you're cooking in the future. The most important ingredient to your sauce is going to be the tomatoes you use. So I always recommend using San Marzano tomatoes. These are known for their sweet flavor, low acidity, and actually the low amount of seeds that they have in it. We're going to be pureeing these, so you don't want a tomato with a lot of seeds in it. Those end up being a little bit bitter and throwing off your sauce. And the sweet taste is really going to go well with this particular sauce, and it's usually the tomato I use for just about any sauce actually. I use 2 different varieties of this to give it a really nice deep flavor. The first is our DOP San Marzano tomatoes. So DOP stands for your Denominazione d'Origine Protetta, which basically is your protected designate of origin. So just as how Champagne is technically only Champagne when it comes from the Champagne region of France, these tomatoes are the same thing. So these are San Marzano tomatoes grown in San Marzano, and you can tell they're super official because of this little dude right there. You see that little seal right there? That means that it's the official good stuff. So these are grown in volcanic ash, and they have a super distinct flavor to them. They're really good, a little bit expensive, but something that absolutely is worth buying. Now, to add depth of flavor, I also get some San Marzano tomatoes that are grown in California. So these are gonna have a little slightly different flavor, but are still extra delicious. And I found that by using a combination of the two, that's really gonna add that nice layers of flavor, that really good taste that you're gonna want. So you can use all these, you can use cheaper stuff, but I really like the combination of these two. The next most important ingredient to your vodka sauce is obviously going to be the vodka. Now, it doesn't really matter what brand of vodka you use. We obviously use Tito's. It's a great vodka for both flavor and quality and price, but it doesn't really matter what you use. The main thing is that you do use vodka. A lot of people ask, does it actually matter if you use vodka, and what does it do for the sauce? Well, when you add vodka to the sauce, and cook it down to a very low alcohol percentage, which we're gonna make sure we do to cook it almost all the way down, it's actually gonna open up all sorts of flavors in the tomatoes and a little bit of the onions that wouldn't be there otherwise. And so a lot of people have done the science and the testing and figuring out exactly what this does. It has something to do with capturing air molecules and adding esters and I don't know, there's science behind it. But you have to make sure that you're actually using vodka in this. It's gonna make your tomatoes and the whole sauce much richer and deeper than it would otherwise be possible if you weren't using this. The next most important thing is gonna be the meat. Now, if you're vegetarian or vegan and you don't wanna actually add meat, you can go ahead and not do that, but why would you? That's not kind of the show we're about. So what I actually like to do is add 2 meats. So I've got my prosciutto and my pancetta. So we're gonna add these early on. We're gonna cook them up with the onion and add that delicious pork flavor all throughout the dish. I got about 3 ounces of prosciutto, I got about a 1/4 pound of pancetta, and together, these are gonna form the base of our sauce and make it extra delicious. Next, let's talk about onion. This is a controversial ingredient. A lot of people say some of the original vodka sauces use onion. A lot of them use shallots, or you could totally leave out an onion. So I like to cut it in the middle. I'm gonna use about a quarter of this gigantic onion. If you've got a smaller Spanish onion or yellow onion, go ahead and use half of it. I like that little bit of oniony flavor that you get, but I'm just gonna use about a quarter of this giant onion. Try it out. If you like onion, leave it in. If you don't, cut it out. Doesn't really matter, but I'm gonna do a little bit of onion for this recipe. And finally, a key decision here is gonna be the cheese you use. Now, it's really important that you use Parmigiano Reggiano. You need to make sure that it actually says Parmigiano Reggiano. So this is sort of like the DOP for the San Marzano tomato. If it says Parmigiano Reggiano, you know that you're getting the good stuff. If it just says Parmesan, it's probably bullshit. The other thing to look for are these markings on the rind of the crust. They actually imprint these into the cheese while they're making it in Italy. A good way to tell if you have the real Parmesan cheese is if they have these markings on the outside. So that's something to always look for. It should also be kind of crunchy, a little crumbly. You know, it's gonna have that nice salty flavor to it, but you gotta make sure that you get the good cheese, okay? If you're using that stuff in the green can from Kraft, you're doing it all wrong. You gotta make sure you get the real Parmigiano Reggiano. It's a little bit expensive. At the end, we're gonna put a half a cup of this in there, a little bit more if you're my wife, but this is really gonna make a huge difference to how all of your Italian food is finished. So you have to make sure that you've got blocks of this around at all times. Now there's a couple other ingredients we're gonna add in here, but these are the ones that really are gonna make the big difference and the stuff you might wanna splurge on if you're trying to do the most high quality version of this recipe. All right, so let's figure out how we're gonna cook this.
We are using whole peeled San Marzano tomatoes we talk about. In order to get this set up, what we're gonna do is just dump both of these bad boys into the blender. We've got our Italian tomatoes, we've got our California tomatoes, and together they're gonna make beautiful tomato sauce babies in the blender. Put our lid on, turn it on, and we're gonna puree until we have ourselves a tomato sauce. So this is gonna be a little bit thin for now, but we're gonna cook that down and actually make it super thick in the end. So a lot of other recipes, they might have you use a tomato paste, but we're almost gonna cook this down into basically being a tomato paste. Also, you can use a food mill for these, but I don't know, fuck it. I got a blender, I don't have a food mill, so we're just gonna do this in a blender. So we've got 4 pieces of garlic here. If you watched my previous video, you know my views on using enough garlic. What we're gonna do is thinly slice these bad boys. And a trick I like to do to peel them is I like to just chop off this little gross end piece, throw that away, and that'll make it actually nice and easy for you to go ahead and peel these suckers off. And there we got it. If you've got any gross pieces on your garlic like that, you can just go ahead and get rid of those. You don't want any gross shit in your cooking. Alright, you're gonna slice your garlic super thin here. So the key is just to get nice and in there, and then just do a nice simple cutting motion. And again, the thinner the better. So what you want to do is think about that scene from The Godfather, where he's like, oh yeah, Tony cut the garlic so thin with the razor blade, and it just melts in the olive oil. Well, that's kind of bullshit. You can't cut garlic thin enough to melt in olive oil. The theory is good, right? As you get closer, make sure you don't cut yourself. Use your nail as a guide. There you go. So we're just gonna go through, chop up all this garlic, put it to the side, and we're gonna add that to our cooking. I found it best to use a nice rocking motion. However, there's a lot of different ways to do it. If you want to use your top of your knife, you can kind of get in there and use just the tip. If you want to get it extra fine. But I found that using the back of the knife and just doing a nice kind of rocking motion, that's always what works best for me to get those nice, super thin slices. If you go too big, just turn it on its side, cut them up small like that, right? This is an exact science. You cut them a little big, doesn't really matter. There you have it. You got yourself a nice pile of garlic, ready to rock and roll. So we'll save that, set that aside. The next step is to cut the onion. You're gonna put one big boy cut down there. And again, this is an absolutely huge onion, right? So I don't really want to have this much onion. We're gonna get rid of this one. So you're gonna go through, you're gonna take off this gross outer layer here. So you got the nice juices underneath. And now here's a simple tip to quickly chopping up an onion here. So you can see it's still attached by this guy up there. And so what I'm gonna do is, I'm just gonna go through and I'm gonna place slices in it without actually cutting out this bottom part, right? So I'm just going down and I'm putting slices in, about as how big as you want your dice. And what I like to do now is put one right down the middle, and then finally go through. And so what you're gonna see is this actually gives you a really nice fine chop with almost no work. It's generally just your real quick and simple way to get a nice dice going on your onion. And then for these pieces, we actually save these in the freezer for when we make stock. So your little leftover bits here and the outer shells, these are actually perfect to make stock with. I'll show you how to do that later, but in the meantime, I'd highly recommend saving all of your bits and ends of vegetables to make some great stock later. So when it's all said and done, I'm actually gonna end up using about 3/4 of a cup of onion. The rest of this, I'm gonna put into my stock bag. And our final step is gonna get the prosciutto cut up, which of course means this guy's around. He's always there when it's time to slice up the prosciutto. So we're just gonna go ahead and really quickly cut this prosciutto into some thin strips. Again, I have about 3 ounces here of prosciutto. It's about all you need. We're gonna mix it with the pancetta later. But that's about all you need to do. We want some thin strips here. Those will get nice and crispy in the pan. Be tasting really good. That should cover all of our prep work. So now we get ready to actually start cooking. Alright, so you can see our oil doing what they call shimmering. You can see a little shimmer going through it. You can put your hand over it, feel that it's hot. And so what we're going to do is drop in a couple of pats of butter. Because nothing makes cooking better than using both oil and butter. It's going to add a nice fat to it. Oh, you can see it crackling and popping. That's how you know it's nice and hot. I actually have this on medium heat. You don't want to go too high on medium-high because it makes it much easier to burn. Keeping this on a nice medium heat is going to help you control the temperature a little bit more. And for that, you're going to be able to pop in your onion and go ahead and add your prosciutto. Get that all nice and mixed in. And then go ahead and add your pancetta. Oh, yeah. Oh, baby. I wish that you could smell what I'm smelling. This smells delicious. Alright, now what we're going to do is we're going to render out a little bit of the fat in the pork. We are going to get it a little bit crispy, and we're going to caramelize those onions. We want them to go basically translucent and a little see-through. Now again here, the key is we have 2 more steps to add. So we're going to have to add the garlic, and we are going to have to add vodka. So we actually want to undercook these a little bit so they don't get too burnt once you have to cook it in the vodka and you add the garlic. So what we're going to look for is just the first sign of it starting to get crispy. We want to pay attention especially to the pancetta. That's going to probably be the first thing to burn. And once the pancetta starts looking crispy, just the very hints of crisp, we're going to throw in the garlic. Then we're going to do the garlic for maybe a minute, maybe less, just to get a little bit of color into it. And then we're going to throw in about 1/3 cup of vodka and then cook down the vodka. So that's exactly where we're going to be at. We're going to just let these sit sometimes so you can start to build up a little bit of some crispy bits on the bottom. We're starting to get a little bit of color in here. Oh, it smells so good. It's only been maybe 2 to 3 minutes here, but we are starting to get in the golden range here, alright? Alright, you can tell it's getting brown, so now's the perfect time to add our garlic and just start to get that fragrance. If you start to see your garlic turn brown, then you're doing it for too long. You need to immediately start deglazing with the vodka. I'm just going to let this cook with the garlic in there for, again, 30 seconds, a minute, just until we start to see a little bit of color coming in. Alright, you can see the garlic starting to get some brown on it, right here. You can tell it's just starting to happen to some of the smaller, thinner pieces. Now we have it exactly where we want it. You can tell too, we're building up some of this nice brown stuff on the bottom, right? Probably touched it a little too much. I'd ideally like a little bit more, but that's fine. So So now what we're gonna do is hit it with our vodka. We've got 1/3 cup of vodka here. If you're cooking this on a gas stove, be careful, you might light it on fire. It's gonna crackle, it's gonna pop, it's gonna be spectacular. Don't light yourself on fire here, boys. Alright, I'm going to turn the heat up a little bit because we want to make sure we cook out all of this vodka. So you can see this is going to totally deglaze the pan here. There's going to be no brown sticky stuff left on the bottom of the pan, which is perfect. That's going to add it all into the flavor of the meat and our onions and this garlic. And what we're going to do, our meat's getting perfect. Smell a little bit of sweetness. A little bit of the peppery zing. And what we're going to do is just let this cook down until it's almost nothing. And now's the time to be a little bit patient. You can see it bubbling, you can see it boiling. You're going to make sure that vodka cooks down nice so you're not tasting vodka in your sauce, okay? You don't want to taste vodka. You want it to be reduced down to 1 or 2%, under 5%, so that it actually gives you a really nice flavor to your tomatoes instead of tasting like vodka. Unless you're trying to get drunk off of some pasta sauce, which, you know, that's your thing, go ahead and fucking do that. I don't care. It's probably not going to taste very good, though. And you can see we started this while the meat was still not fully cooked, so that it ends up just finishing right as the vodka is done cooking off. You can see our garlic is starting to turn just a little bit brown. It's not burnt, it's just getting good. So we're about halfway cooked down here. You can see it starting to come together a little bit. You can see it really working itself down. But this is still too much, okay? This is still too much vodka in here. We really need to give this a chance to fully cook down. Give it a little stir here. Make sure nothing's burning. Alright, we are about 80% of the way there right now. Remember, we did have olive oil and butter in this, okay? So you're still going to have some liquid in there. You're just making sure the vodka is done. So if you see clear liquid in there, you know that it's still vodka. But if you're just seeing a little bit of that olive oil that's left over, that's perfectly fine. You're going to have that. And that's just going to help make the sauce delicious. All that olive oil is nice and infused. We are damn close here. Alright, that's about where we want it at. I think most of the vodka is cooked out. Our meat's starting to be just about perfect. So now's the time to go ahead and add this sauce. So we've got all our nice tasty meat in there. We've got our onions. We've got our vodka that's been cooked down. We've got our oil. We've got our butter. That is going to be delicious. Now, we want to bring this up to temperature. We're going to bring this up to a nice simmer. And then from there, cook it down for maybe about 40 minutes, okay? That's about how long we want to get the cook down going for. As it comes up to a simmer, just starting to do now, we're going to do a couple extra things. We're going to put our pot of water on to boil. That's where we're going to cook our noodles in. The other thing we're going to do is add in some basil. I love the flavor of fresh basil in our pasta, so we're going to do that. And we're going to hit it with some crushed red pepper. I like a little bit of kick in mine, so I'm going to add about that much. This is about the level of a simmer we're looking at. You see it shaking and bubbling, moving and shaking, doing its thing. It's grooving, it's rhyming, it's styling. This is about what you want it at, okay? Bubbling, but you don't want a rolling boil. We're going to cook this slow and low, again, for about 40 minutes. Get that all incorporated, get that feeling hella good. At this point in time, I'm also going to put in a little fresh cracked pepper. And then, of course, boom, switches over to low. You know your boy likes a little salt in his dish, so we're going to hit it with a couple pinches of salt while it's cooking. Fuck it. Put the rest of that in. Hit it with a little salt, hit it with a little pepper. You got the basil in there. You got the crushed red in there. You got the pancetta. You got the prosciutto. You got some caramelized onions. This is going to be a hell of fucking good sauce, my guys. And when we're talking simmer, this is about where you want it at. I've got my stove set to literally low, okay? Once you bring it to that tipping point of being on a boil, especially when you're on kind of a shitty electric stove, it doesn't take anything to keep it at a simmer. Now, if you're on a gas stove, you might have to play around with it a little bit, but generally the heat retention, especially in a nice pan like this, on a stove like this, you literally just keep that bad boy on low. See, low, and that's enough to keep just that perfect simmer going. Now's the perfect time to go out, have a smoke, drink a beer, relax a little bit, and then the best part of cooking Italian food is coming inside your house, and then, oh, my guys, My boys, that is the best part of cooking, is that smell when you first come inside after being outside. Oh, it makes it all worth it. We're about 10 minutes in now. Let's check how thick it is. It's important to always check your thickness with a grandma spoon. You need a wooden spoon while you're cooking pasta sauce. It's mandatory. So a good way to do it is to pull down and check to see if you can see the bottom. You can't see the bottom right now. We're 10 minutes in, so it's not thick enough. We need to get it thicker. While the sauce is cooking up, you might be able to hear it in the background there, because I have a shitty mic set up. What I have here is a box grater. This is great because you have a cup measurement hooked onto the bottom, and you've got 3 sides. You got fine, medium, you got a slicer, and then you got thick. When I use Parmesan, I like to do it on the thinnest one. That's going to give you a nice powdery Parmesan that you're actually going to be able to put on, and it's going to melt right into your sauce, and that's going to be the good stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my Parmigiano Reggiano, and I'm going to spend the next 25 minutes grating this on the super fine setting. Probably should have put a bowl down. All right, we got a plate to catch the excess now, and I'm just going to grate this bad boy. Don't let these big fucking chunks come in, okay? No big chunks. You want it to be powdery and delicious. It's good exercise for when you're in quarantine. It's better than a shake weight. And you're going to grind up a half a cup of Parmesan cheese that's super fine and powdery. You know you're doing it right when your arm starts feeling sore. Alright, and then when you're about half a cup, that's about perfect. And then the cheese on the plate, that's going to be your bonus cheese. And that's what you're going to put on right before you take the picture. That's going to be the extra good stuff.
One thing I forgot to talk about is the pasta that you use. Now, normally we'll make our own pasta from scratch. Video on that coming soon, but it's a lazy Monday meal. I don't have time to be making fucking pasta from scratch. We have some very good pasta that we're going to use instead. What you want to look for when you have pasta is a couple different things. For a sauce like this, you want to use penne or something with a big hole in it, okay? Because you want this sauce to go all the way through. What we're using tonight is actually garganelli. All right, I like the ridges on it. I like the way it captures the sauce, but go ahead and use penne. Go ahead and use anything with a hole in it. Now, there's a couple other things that I really like about this brand in particular. First of all, it's from Italy, which always means it's good. Not necessarily, but it's generally pretty good. This is done with quite a bit of semolina. So semolina is a different type of flour than regular bread flour. It's something that we often use to make our pasta, but that's going to give it a nice depth of flavor that your traditional pasta isn't going to have. The other thing that this has is that it was dried and cut using bronze plates. From all the pasta nerds, if you read anything online, the bronze plates are going to make this taste super delicious. It's also got a bunch of other Italian words on it that I don't understand, but I'm going to assume that's the good shit. We've had this many times before. This is one of our favorite brands. It's a little bit more expensive, but it's going to make a huge difference when you don't feel like making pasta yourself. Again though, if you've only got shitty pasta in a blue box or whatever, go ahead and fucking use that. Who gives a shit? It's just pasta. But if you feel like making something good, this is the good stuff.
All right, we're about 30 minutes in. Give it a try. So we're starting to see the bottom of the pan now, which means it is not thick enough. Okay, we need to keep this going, but you can tell we're starting to see the bottom of the pan. That's how we know it's starting to get thick. Make sure you take a moment and stick your face in it and smell them smells. Oh my God. I wish you were here. It smells so fucking good. Oh my God. Boys, this is why we cook. It's so that you can smell shit like this whenever you want. Not sure if this has to be said, but I'm gonna say it. Make sure you're stirring your sauce. You don't need to be in here every 2 minutes giving it a stir, but every 5 minutes or so, go in there and give it a nice stir. Make sure you're keeping it moving, because you don't want all the tomatoes to cook all at once, or you don't want anything burning on the bottom. So make sure you're giving it a stir as you go. 40 minutes now. I've been keeping it very slow and low though. Alright, you can see we're seeing a lot of the bottom here on your pole, but it still needs more time. But if you're in a rush, you can put it on a much higher simmer and get it done with quicker. However, 40 minutes is about what I'd recommend for start testing to see if the thickness is proper. So we are at about 80% thickness here. 40 minutes again is kind of my default, but this one needs to go longer, so I've been keeping it slow and low. So I'm gonna give this bad boy probably another 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes. I mean, fuck, maybe it goes up to an hour. You can't rush the sauce, because what we're doing here is cooking out a lot of the water that was in the tomatoes to really concentrate all that delicious tomatoey flavor into that oil, into that vodka, into all those flavors we spent prepping before. We really want to get all that flavor in here. All right, we are 50 minutes in. As you can see, this has turned from a watery sauce into like almost a marinara, which is exactly where we want it. Look at these pulls, my guy. However, you can still tell over here, there's still water left. You don't want this water in your sauce. You need all of the sauce to be thick. Again, this is 90% of the way there. So what we're gonna do now is get our water cranking again. As the water's coming to a boil, we're gonna hit it with the Mortons. Make sure you give it a good salting. You're gonna add a lot of flavor again. Boom. Get that nice salty water. Also, some of this water is gonna end up in this sauce, so you wanna make sure that you got a nice salty water for your pasta. So we are about an hour in, and our sauce has reached maximum thickness. You see how on that peel, it just leaves exposed pan, it doesn't fill it back in. There's almost no water left. That's how you know. Oh, look at that. It's thick, all that water is gone, and what we're gonna do is actually replace that missing water with cream. So that's exactly where we want. Now what we're gonna do, as it approaches this thickness, we got our boiling water. It's time to drop the pasta into the water. Now this bag says to cook it for 9 minutes. What we're gonna do is actually cook the pasta for 8 minutes, because we're gonna let it finish 1 minute into the sauce. So while the pasta is going, now that our sauce is at premium thickness, we're gonna make sure it's on low, and we're just gonna slowly start working some cream into the sauce. Oh, before I forget, before we put the cream in, we're gonna take out our basil. Oh my god, that's so fucking thick. And so what we're gonna do is slowly start incorporating the cream. We got heavy cream here. I'm just going to add it in a little bit at a time. Alright, that's maybe half the cream we want. I like to add maybe a cup, but it's really a sight thing. You want to add a little bit in, stir it up, and then see where you get, so you end up at that perfect, like nice creamy pink texture. Alright, so this is still like orange. So that means it needs a little bit more cream. Alright, we add a little bit more cream in there. Alright, give it a stir. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. That is a real close to what we want right there. That is looking hella good. Might do a little bit more cream. Again, adding maybe a cup if you're trying to do this at home. But again, fuck it, man. It's your fucking sauce. Get it to the level you want. Get it to the level you want. Make sure it's that color you want. I don't know how light you liked it. It's like Bob Ross, man. Make some fucking happy trees out here. Oh, shit. Oh, that looks so good. Alright. One more little splash. One more little splash. Just making some happy cream. That's what she said. Oh, fuck, yeah. Oh, look at that goddamn sauce. Holy shit. See, that's the color I like. Maybe a little bit more. Maybe a little bit more. Maybe a little bit more. You never know. Okay. Okay. That's perfect. That's perfect. That's the exact color I like for my vodka sauce. If you want it lighter, make it lighter, man. It's your fucking sauce. It's cooking with your boy. We out here just cooking. It's up to you. There's no rules here. There's no rules here. I'll spill all over the stove. Fuck it. Clean it up later. We got a couple minutes left on this. We're gonna let these flavors get to know each other a little bit. That's a Babish line. Probably can't say that. That's probably fucking patented or something. We're gonna let these chill out together while this finishes up. And what you need to make sure is, right about the 7-minute mark, is you need to taste your pasta. Don't let those fucking people in the pasta conglomerate, big pasta, tell you when your pasta's ready. So that's approaching al dente, right at the border of what we want, because it's still gonna cook a little bit in the sauce. We're at about 7.5, I don't know, coming up on 8 minutes. You see them starting to float. It's that perfect right before al dente. Keep trying them. That's right before they're perfect. So what we're gonna do is take these off, we're gonna strain them, and get them ready to go. Before you take your noodles off, take your measuring cup, and reserve about a half cup of pasta water. Now you're gonna do this, because that's gonna add it to the sauce. Alright, so you missed this shot, but what I've done is I've added the pasta into here.
And then what I did was incorporate a little bit of the pasta water into it. Maybe 2/3 of a cup. And what you get by adding the pasta water into the sauce here is you get this delicious creamy sauce, okay? So before it was thick, but now look at it. We've added the pasta, we've added the pasta water, and now we're just gonna cook it in a little bit. And now we've got a perfect al dente noodle. We allowed them to finish cooking in this sauce. This is a shitload of sauce, okay? I fully admit that. I'll be the first one to admit that. I love a shitload of vodka sauce with my noodles. That's the reason I make fucking vodka sauce, is to put a shitload in with my nudes. If you don't like this much sauce, go ahead and before you put the noodles in, add your pasta water, cook it down, save half of it. You can do that, it's your life. But for me, this is why I make the dish, is to have these delicious noodles fully cooked in sauce. Oh my God, it smells amazing. I wish you could smell this. It smells so fucking good. Okay, so you remember our cheese? We got half a cup. Now's our time to add the cheese. All right, we're gonna add half a cup of Parmesan cheese in here. Oh my God, it is so cheesy. It is so delicious. But that's what we're doing. We're gonna add that delicious cheese into the fucking thing. Oh my God. Oh, that's how you finish it. Wow, that smell. That smell when you add the Parmesan and it hits everything else. Oh, all the pepper and everything else. Ah, fuck yeah. That is so fucking good. All right, time to plate it up, boys. And then to finish it off, you want to put a little more of that plate Parmesan on it. You're going to chop some parsley and put that on top to add a little bit of color. And then you're going to be ready to eat. Let's give this a shot. Oh, yeah. Okay. The noodles are cooked perfectly. Wow. The key is to finish them a minute or two before they're perfectly al dente. Add them back into the sauce, finish cooking the sauce. They're going to absorb more of that sauce. Oh, and it tastes so good. It's creamy. It's peppery. All the seasoning is perfect. The consistency is perfect. Man, if you try this at home, I promise you, you're going to fucking love it. This is unbelievable. Holy shit. Oh, the pork in there. When you get a little bite of that pancetta or that prosciutto, oh, it sets it off perfectly. All right, this is a recipe you have to try. Doesn't matter what ingredients you have. I showed you the good ingredients. If you got shitty ingredients, go ahead and use that. Talk with my mouth full. Doesn't matter. Get some wine, make the food, and piss off and cook. All right, my belly is full. That was delicious. I just want to give a little follow-up conversation about whether you should add onions or not, because that's one of the big debate points when you make this recipe. So I have to say, I really enjoyed it with onions, how we made it. I've made it several times before without onions and with onions, and they both have their distinct flavor profiles. So if you want to make this without onions, I really think you should. I think you should try that. If you like having those little tiny, onions are so caramelized at this point, they're almost like these chewy, little delicious bites of like sweetness and caramelized onion. And I like that sometimes, and I don't like it other times. So it kind of depends on the mood I'm in. I think when this is gonna be my finished recipe, like my last meal recipe, I don't know if I'd have onions in it. It really is gonna depend on the day. As you give this recipe a try, give it a shot with onions, give it a shot without onions. It's probably safer to cook without onions. There's less chance of it burning. But then again, if you love that little sweet caramelized bite of onion as you eat your sauce, then definitely add onion. But this is something that you can really go back and forth on. I like it both ways, but it's one of those ingredients that is totally optional and is gonna change that flavor for you in the end. And it's really a personal preference sort of thing.